Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Dina Okasha, back again with my educational videos. Today, we are going to discuss part 2 of equation of line. I think that this video would be a very important video as we're going to discuss the relationship between the gradient of parallel lines, perpendicular lines, and we are going to solve some of the tricky questions that you might get in your past papers exams. Tamam? Let's first start with the new information. Let me clear this page. With the new information. مش عارفة ايه البينك اللي انا بكتب بيه ده. انا مش بحب البينك اصلا. Let me change this color. Okay. So actually I'm a blue person. I prefer blue. Okay? So let's start with the new information that we have in this video. Then new information discusses the gradient of parallel lines. And the gradient, let me just redraw this as it looks miserable in a way. The gradient of perpendicular lines, the gradient of perpendicular lines. Now I'm going to be very, very brief with this. Now, gradient parallel lines, as you can see, and of course, I guess you all know what do I mean by parallel lines. Parallel lines have same gradient. Parallel lines have same gradient. So for instance, if this is line 1 and the gradient of line 1 is 3, then the gradient of line 2 would be 3 as well. So parallel lines have the same gradient, and let's remember that the gradient is represented by the letter M. Now, as for perpendicular lines, first let's remember that the perpendicular lines are two lines that intersect at 90 degrees. Perpendicular lines have what we call negative reciprocals of one another. Negative reciprocals of one another. طبعا دي شكلها مكلكع كده. اللي هو ايه negative reciprocals of one another. I'm going to explain this in details. Now let me give you an example. Let's assume that gradient 1 after calculation is this fraction over here, which is 2/3. What would be the gradient of the other line? Now, negative is an indication that if the first gradient is positive, then I change its sign. Negative doesn't mean that the other gradient must be negative. Negative means that the gradient of the other line would be of opposite sign. Yani, if the first gradient is positive, as you can see, then the second gradient would be negative. Reciprocal means flip the fraction. Reciprocal means flip the fraction. Yani 2/3 would change into 3/2. This is what I mean by negative reciprocals of one another. Now let me give you another example in another slide for two perpendicular lines. Okay, now let's assume the first gradient M1, the first gradient is -4. And you know by fact that this line over here is perpendicular to the other. Then what would be the gradient? Negative reciprocals. Negative means change sign. Negative means change sign. So this is -4, it changes into positive. Reciprocal means flip the fraction. محدش يقول لي يا مس طب -4 دي مش fraction. لا, -4 is a fraction لأنه it could be written as -4/1. So reciprocal means I'm going to flip it. So -4 changes into positive 1/4. تمام؟ طبعا أنا بلخصها بشقلب وقلب. Negative reciprocals means شقلب وقلب. شقلب يعني if the first fraction is 3/7. شقلب يعني I change it into 7/3. اقلب يعني change sign. So if this is positive, it changes into negative. If it's positive, it changes into negative. And as I said before, this could be written as -7/3. يعني I can place the negative next to the 7, or I can place the negative next to the 3, or I can just keep it هنا outside the fraction. It could be written in any of these forms, but not -7/3. The last thing that I'm going to discuss before I move on into questions is the mathematical meaning of negative reciprocals of each other. احنا قلنا يعني ايه negative reciprocal، اللي احنا برضو جبنا لها الشورت كات بتاعتنا اللي هي شقلب وقلب. شقلب قلنا يعني اقلب الفراكشن، sorry, flip the fraction. وقلب يعني change the sign. Now, if you notice that if I take the first fraction and I multiply by the second fraction, the answer will always be -1. Again, if I take the first gradient, multiply by the second gradient, the answer will always and forever is -1. So, for perpendicular lines, this is extremely important الحتة اللي أنا بقولها دي لأن دي جت قبل كده كتير في الامتحانات. For perpendicular lines, we conclude that the gradient of the first line multiplied by the gradient of the second line will always and forever give -1. Always and forever give -1. And I'm going to use my stamps over here. أهي الstamps اللي أنا بحبها. This is very important. And this applies only for perpendicular lines. طيب, let's move بقى to the notes and start solving some questions related to parallel lines and perpendicular lines. يعني هو المعلومات الجديدة خلاص خلصت، بس احنا ناقص لنا شوية حل حبة حلوين وسامري وكلام من النوع ده. Now, this is in your notes, page number 146. If you are using my notes, please refer to this page over here. And again, بس عشان ما حدش يتوه مني, now we are going to solve questions related to parallel lines and perpendicular lines, and we're going to solve questions generally about the equation of line. Now, this video is an important video. As we said, two lines are said to be parallel if they have the same gradient. So let's look at this question over here. The example here says, the example here says, line 1 has equation y equals 3x plus 7 minus 7. Sorry. Actually, I am going to sketch. واحنا قلنا الsketching في part اللي فات بتاع الفيديو لأنه أنا ليا مزاج إن احنا نوسع كده دماغنا وإحنا بنشتغل. Now, if I wish to sketch this line over here, which is line 1. Now, first, let's identify the gradient of this line and the y-intercept of this line. Now, if you remember from the previous video, we said that if the equation is written in this form, اللي هو y equals mx plus c, and if y is subject, then the coefficient of the x, أو الرقم اللي على شمال الx ده هو الgradient. تمام. And the c is -7, the constant value that doesn't have an x. This is the y-intercept. So if I actually decide to sketch this line over here, +3 indicates that the line from left to right is going up. +3 indicates that the line from left to right is going up, and the c indicates that the line crosses the y-axis at -7. So this line goes up بالشكل ده. ده اللي هو line 1. أنا هكتب عليه line 1. Line 1 كده. And I have the equation. Actually, I'm going to write m1, which is the gradient. 3. Let's see بقى question A, question B, and question C. جه الإكزامينر بقى قال لي إيه؟ line 2 is parallel to line 1. معناها إيه؟ معناها إنه there's another line, a totally different line, and this line is parallel to line 1. طب okay, parallel. طب فين؟ كل دول parallel lines. Now, if you look at question A, question A said, just write an equation of line 2. Now, what is the fact that I know about line 2? Since line 2 is parallel to line 1, and please remember that what we said earlier in the previous video, that if you wish to write an equation of a line, you need a gradient and you need a point. Now, this point could include the y-intercept, or it عادي مش لازم يكون فيها ال y-intercept. Okay, so let's see what is given here for line 2. So if I wish to write an equation of line 2, تمام? Okay, since line 2 is parallel, So definitely the gradient of line 2 is going to be 3. Same gradient. طيب يبقى احنا هنا مبدئيا we're going to use y equals mx plus c. طيب خلاص I know now that the gradient is 3. طب what about the y-intercept؟ هنا the question was مش عايزة أقول vague بس الإكزامينر ما سخفش عليا. قال لي write an equation of line 2 خلاص. يعني أي line 2 أنا عايزاه. Any line 2 that I wish. So the y-intercept of line 2 مش مهمة بالنسبة لي. يعني إيه يا مس؟ يعني أنا هنا I can write any y-intercept that I want. بس بشرط إن السي دي طبعا ما تكونش كام؟ -7. So again, since line 2 is parallel to line 1, so definitely I will use the same gradient, which is the 3. Type. As for the y-intercept, since the examiner did not specify any point or any y-intercept, so I am allowed to use any c that I want as long as this c is not equal to -7. Because if I use the -7, it means that I am talking about line 1 and the examiner requires a totally different line. So as you can see, this is a nice question. Now let's look at question number B. So ده خلاص خلص كده انتهى أمره فهنقلب على حاجة تانية. هنا بقى بيقول لي إيه؟ أنا بس همسح ده. قال لي write an equation of line 2. يعني هو مديني كذا كيس للاين 2. أول حاجة قال لي write equation of line 2 سكت. تاني حاجة the question says write an equation of line 2 and line 2 is still parallel. So ما المستفاد من كلمة parallel؟ المستفاد من كلمة parallel إنه the gradient is 3. The gradient is 3. ده المستفاد من كلمة parallel إنه the gradient is 3. طيب, what about the y-intercept? Now, if we look back at this question over here, you will find that I am given an order pair. هنا. The examiner here, the examiner specified that line 2 is parallel to the blue and passes through -4. حلوة دي. Line 2 is parallel to the blue and passes through -4. Since it is parallel, so the gradient is 3. Since the x coordinate here is equal to the 0, يبقى definitely I can tell that the c is equal to كام? To -4. And since the c is given, if you remember, we discussed this in the previous class, since the c is given, طبعا I recommend that you use y equals mx plus c. The gradient is 3 and the c is -4. So I just place it over here. So this is the equation of line 2 if it passes through this specific point. Now, let's look بقى at question number C. Now, question number C is quite different. It says here, write an equation of line 2. Actually, I'm just going to do another sketching over here. أهو. احنا عندنا the blue line. I'm just going to use the same colors. The blue line, which is line 2. Sorry, أنا آسفة, which is line 1. It has a gradient of 3 and the y-intercept is -7. هنا بقى بيقول لي ايه بقى في السؤال ده؟ بيقول لي line 2 ده parallel برضه. ماشي خلاص بدل parallel برضه يبقى متفقين ان هو same gradient. Okay, so I know the gradient. The gradient is still 3. But this time, line 2 passes through -2 and -7. Let's just assume that -2 and -7 is over here. So this is line 2. I am required to write the equation of this line. I am required to write the equation of this line. في ناس بتحسب السي. أنا ده مش هدفي في year 10 ولا في الاي اس لأنه هو في year 10 وفي الاي اس وفي الاي 2 مش بيطلب قوي السي يعني مش هي الفكرة هو بيقول لي write an equation وخلاص فأنا ممكن أكتبها بأنهي فورمة. أنا من أنصار إنه if the point given in the question doesn't contain the C, use y minus y1 equals m open bracket x minus x1. Y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. And I'm going to highlight the letters that will be replaced by numbers. Okay, so the gradient is 3. The gradient is 3. This order pair over here, this is x1 and this is y1. All we do is substitute y minus -7, and please be aware of the negative signs, equals the gradient, which is 3, x minus -2, x minus -2. Now you can just expand and simplify. Y plus 7 equals طبعا دي هتبقى هنا 3 open bracket x plus 2. مش مشكلة، أنا بعملها in details يعني، بس همسح ده كده عشان يبقى عندي space أحل فيه. And then y plus 7 equals 3x plus 6. And then y plus 7 sorry لا مش y plus 7 بقى، خلاص move the 7 الناحية التانية. So y equals طبعا move the 7 by subtraction. So y equals 3x minus 1. اوكي، انا بحب استعملها لانه it's just basic substitution. انا بس بخاف من الجزئيه بتاعت calculating the CD، انه احيانا المسائل كتير دلوقتي هتشوفوا واحنا بنحل بيبقى فيها fractions، فمش طالبه بقى وجع دماغ. So in this question over here, line 2 has the same gradient with 3, but in this case, no C was given in the order pair. So I would suggest that you just use this equation over here, substitute immediately. Remove y1, put -7, remove the m, put the gradient, remove the x, put -2. Simplify, as we did in step number 3 over here. Okay, and then expand, and then just collect like terms, and this is the final answer over here. So this is just mainly a basic example for you to know how to write different equations of straight line. Okay, now let's look at question number 2 here. Now we already discussed the perpendicular lines in the whiteboard. So 2 lines are said to be perpendicular. This is what we said and explained earlier in the video, are negative reciprocals of one another. And I actually want, hey, guys, please do not forget this. This is super, super important. اللي هي gradient 1 times gradient 2 is equal to -1. And this is in case of perpendicular lines. This is in case of perpendicular lines, okay? And you can, and now as we're going to move on to the classified and we're going to solve questions, you'll see that بيجي كتير حوار البارا والperpendicular ده. So هنا مثلا اهو, if gradient 1 is 3 over 1, please remember that any whole number could be written as a fraction. Gradient 2, and please write this down as well for those of you who like my shortcuts. شقلب وقلب. يعني ايه شقلب وقلب؟ وتاني بس بأكد، شقلب وقلب دي أنا بستعملها في perpendicular lines فقط. Okay? شقلب يعني flip the number أو flip the fraction. اقلب يعني change the sign from negative to positive or the other way around from positive to negative. هنا برضو نفس الكلام. شقلب وقلب. So if the first gradient is 2 over 3, then the second gradient would be flip the fraction, change the sign. Flip the fraction, change the sign. And this is my love, my favorite. أنا بحبها جدا صراحة. And I'm so in love with this equation over here. I love it. Okay? Now let's move on to the classified and solve some questions related to parallel lines and perpendicular lines. So if you are using my books, please open classified part 1. This is classified part 1, page number 171. Classified part 1, page 171. Okay, here it says the straight line L1 has equation kaza. Now it is very important for you to know, why am I given the equation of the straight line? Why am I given the equation of the straight line? Now let's just discuss something here on the whiteboard. Now the gradient, we already discussed the gradient in a separate video. Now the N, which is the letter that represents the gradient. Okay, now how do I calculate the gradient in math O level? How do I calculate the gradient generally? You calculate the gradient if you have 2 points given, so if the examiner by any chance مديني 2 points, يبقى ال 2 points دول موجودين علشان أنا أحسب منهم الجريدينت. Okay? فأنا لازم أعرف why am I given this? If I am given 2 points in a question and I am required to calculate the gradient, then I will definitely use the rule. And as we said, the 2 points could be given in a theoretical question or they could be given in a line drawn. طيب, if I am given an equation of a line, زي السؤال اللي احنا هنحله دلوقتي, what if the examiner provided this equation over here? Why do you think I am given this equation? I am given this equation mainly to find the gradient. So if you remember, and that was discussed in video part 1, if y is subject, then I immediately can tell that the gradient is equal to 3. And the last method for calculating the gradient in math is by using calculus, or in other words, differentiation. تمام? There are 2 videos related to differentiation, but most probably I'm going to delete them and redo the videos. Okay, لأن في حتة تقريبا في الصوت مش مظبوطة. This will be discussed later on. So going back to my question, the question here says what? The straight line L has this equation over here. Why do you think I'm given the equation? I am given the equation of line 1 to be able to find the gradient from the equation. But first, you have to ask yourself, is y subject in this equation? فطبعا y is not subject. So since y is not subject, you must make y subject first to be able to find the gradient. فالx مع السلامة. So 2y is equal to negative 1x plus 4. أنا بحب أكتب ال1. يعني راحة نفسية. And then to be able to eliminate this multiplied 2, I will divide by 2 the whole, every part of the equation, and I end up with the following. Y equals negative half x plus 2. So basically, the gradient of line 1 is negative half. أهو. This is the gradient of line 1. وخدوا بالكم الناس اللي متابعة فيديوهاتي، أنا عمري ما بقرا السؤال كله على بعضه كده مرة واحدة. خدوا بالكم الابروتش بتاع الأو ليفل غير الابروتش بتاع الاي اس غير الابروتش بتاع الاي 2. تمام؟ لازم في الأو ليفل بالذات، لأنه الامتحانات بتبقى طويلة. اوكي، ان انا ابقى عارفه الاكزامينر مديني المعلومه دي ليه. يعني انت يا اكزامينر why did you give me this equation? Okay, moving on to line 2. Line 2 passes through these points. اوكي، هنا بقى انا عندي 3 احتمالات. If I'm given 2 order pairs, if you remember, I can calculate the gradient, I can calculate the midpoint, and I can calculate the distance, if you remember, as discussed in a previous video. دلوقتي بقى I can move on to the following step, or the following sentence. Here it says, Michael says that the lines are perpendicular. Perpendicular is a key word. إيه معلوماتي عن ال perpendicular lines? معلوماتي عن ال perpendicular lines that gradient 1 multiplied by gradient 2 is negative 1. عايزين تقولوا شقلب وقلب، عايزين تقولوها negative reciprocals, it's up to you. So, meaning that I am given these 2 order pairs to find the gradient of line 2. Now, since I have 2 order pairs, then I will calculate the gradient of line 2 by using the rule y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So this is x1, y1, x2, y2, basic substitution. 9 minus negative 7. Please يا جماعة be aware of the negative signs. يعني بلاش 9 minus 7 دي على طول، عشان أنا بشوف المستيكس دي وبيجي لي انهيار. أهو blank minus blank. y2 is 9. y1 is negative 7. It's okay to have 2 negatives. Again, blank minus blank. x2 is 7. x1 is negative 1. And then on the calculator بقى على طول. يعني don't waste your time in mental skills. This is not our objective now خالص. 7 minus minus 1. So the answer is 2. So this is the gradient of line 2. Michael ده بيقول إنه the lines are perpendicular. Is Michael correct? You must show how you get your answer. طيب What information do I know about perpendicular lines? Now, this is the proof of perpendicular lines. So if I actually take gradient 1 and I multiply it by gradient 2, will I get an answer of -1? Yes, I did. I did get an answer of -1. So yes, my calculation is correct. And these are the proper steps that you have to show, because the product of the gradients, as you can see, is -1. I just wanted to show you this example over here to know how to deal with perpendicular lines. Now let's move on to parallel lines and a review on y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. طبعا I'm not going to solve all the questions in the classified. I'm just going to select some questions which I think is important. Okay, so let's look at I just need to عايزة سؤال يكون شوية complicated، يعني مش قوي بس فين كنت لسه شايفاه Okay, this is page number 165. This is page number 165. The question here says, this is a question not related to parallel and perpendicular. This is a question that we will review together on y minus y1 equals mx minus x1, and I'm actually going to solve كذا question related to y minus y1 because زي ما بقول لكم يا جماعة ليه بختار الأسئلة دي بالذات؟ علشان بس أوريكم by proof إنه خلاص y equals mx plus c مش هي اللي دايما مطلوبة. مش هي اللي دايما مطلوبة، يعني هو دلوقتي بقى بيطلب من الإيكويشن in different forms. مسائل يقول لي write it in the form of y equals mx plus c، مسائل يقول لي write it in this form over here as you can see، مسائل ما يقوليش خالص، فعلى حسب. طيب here it says line L, let me pick another color. What color? Blue. Okay. Here it says the line L has gradient -5/2 and passes through the point with the coordinates كذا. Find an equation of the line and write it in this form over here. These are very famous questions such that A, B, and C are integers. وأنا بشتغل بالسمكة. Okay? اللي كنت قلتها في فيديو 1. دايما اتعودوا تعملوا الحركة دي. To write an equation of a line. What are the two requirements? I must have the gradient اهي and a point. هعمل لكم summary للحتة دي بس بعد ما اخلص المسألة. Okay, actually I'm going to do it now here in the whiteboard. So this is the summary of the gradient. Now to write an equation of a line. To write EQN يعني equation. To write an equation of a line. I need a gradient, and as we said, the gradient could be found by the rule or it could be found from an equation depending on the givens in the question. And I need a point. And what I mean by a point is I need an order pair. I need an order pair. Okay? طب خلينا بس الظاهر الحتة دي من البورد مش شغالة. طب انتي كنتي شغالة هنا؟ تمام. And I need a point. معلش يا جماعة الهاند رايتنج والله بتاعي بحاول. Okay. Now this point might include the C بالشكل ده if the x is equal to 0. طبعا هنا we immediately use y equals mx plus c لأن زي ما اتفقنا احنا دايما our objective is the time management. Time management مهم جدا جدا جدا. So if the order pair contains the c, then use y equals mx plus c. تمام? If the point doesn't contain the c, then I would seriously recommend that you use this y minus y1 equals m open brackets x minus x1. Okay. And I'm going to put arrows on the letters that should be replaced by numbers. Here you replace the m and the c, and here you replace y1, the m, and x1. Okay? وطبعا it's all يعني according to your judgment. انا تاني باكد انا مش بحسب السي لو السي مش موجوده، ده مش معناه ان هو مش صح، هي بس انا لا مش من هواتها قوي يعني. في ناس بقى بتفكس لدي خالص وبتشتغل بدي في كل الاحوال، يعني if you wish to use y minus y1 at all times it's totally up to you. Now let's go back to the question اهو and see. The gradient is given already, which is negative 5 over 2. Now, this is new for us because we didn't deal with negative questions, gradients before. If you are given a negative gradient, to avoid silly mistakes, حطوا بس النيجاتيف فوق جنب ال 5. If you are dealing with negative gradients, put the negative next to the numerator, next to the 5. And then you have the point over here, which is 1 and 3. Now, when you look at the point, you will find that no C is given. If no C is given, خلاص زي ما اتفقنا, we will use y minus y1 equals m, open bracket, x minus x1. That's it. And then, what do I do next? I'm going to basically substitute. عشان كده بقول لكم يا جماعة هي substitution خلاص. Substitute in the highlighted letters. ايه ده؟ فين القلم اهو. Now, y minus طبعا this point contains x1 and y1. It contains x and y. So remove y1 and put 3 equals, the gradient is زي ما اتفقنا, keep the negative with the 5 over 2, open bracket, x minus 1. اهو. So step number 1, step number 2. Let's look back at this. Write the equation in the form of ax plus by equals to c. يعني the examiner requires the x and the y on one side and the constant value on the other side, where a, b, and c are integers. We discussed the meaning of the word integer. An integer is a whole number. It could be positive, it could be negative, it could be zero. مش عشان هو كاتبها هنا plus فهي لازم تبقى plus. ماشي؟ هما الأرقام ممكن تبقى positive ممكن تبقى negative. طيب ركزوا معايا بقى. How do I do this to eliminate the fraction immediately? بصوا أنا بحب الطريقة دي اللي هي طريقة السمكة. Deal with this fraction as if it's a fish. The tail to be multiplied with the left-hand side. And the head to be multiplied with the right-hand side. السمكة is very useful because it will eliminate the fraction immediately. ديلها هنعمله multiplying by a right-hand side وراسها هنعمله multiplying ديلها left-hand side وراسها right-hand side. والنيجاتيف طب فين يا مس؟ خلي النيجاتيف فوق. Keep the negative with the numerator. 2 times y, 2y. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. Negative 5 times x is negative 5x. Negative 5 times negative 1 is positive 5. And then see فهي دي ميزة بقى حلوة قوي بتاعت السمكة دي لأنه زي ما انتم شايفين الفراكشن خلص على طول. And then I will just rearrange it according to what is required. So هنودي دي هناك فهتبقى 2y plus 5x and then I will collect the numbers 5 plus 6. طبعا the final answer اللي هي 5 you'll get 2y plus 5x equals to 11. 2y plus 5x equals to 11. And this is an example just to show you how to deal with negative fractions and how to write the equation in this required form. Okay, let's pick another question related to برضو بقى parallel and perpendicular and see how do we solve such a question. خليني بس ايه اشوف سؤال برضو كده. يكون ليه علاقة بالجزئية دي. لا كده خلاص هنا. معلش ثواني بس، كنت شفت واحد في أول classified. أهو. This is another question. ده مدخلي بقى حتة البارallel. بيقول لي the line L passes through the point 3 and 1. And this line is parallel to another line with this equation over here. Now, I am required to write the equation of line L. Now, as we said, to write an equation of a line, I need the gradient and I need a point. Now, as you can see, I am given the point. يعني بصوا عشان بس ايه نبقى متفقين لو عايزين نعمل sketching. في عندي line اسمه, I'm just going to rearrange this line. Y equals negative 2x plus 7 على 2. Now, whenever you are given an equation of a line, أنا هعمل line L بلون تاني. Whenever you are given an equation of a line, make sure that Y is subject. If Y is not subject, then you make it subject to be able to find the gradient of this line. فاللاين ده اللي هو بيتكلم عليه الإكزامينر الجريدينت بتاعه negative 2 means that if I'm going to sketch it, then this line is going down and the y-intercepts is 7 على 2 اللي هي 3.5. 7 divide 2, which is 3.5. So this line is going down and it passes through 3.5. ده اللي هو اللاين اللي ملوش اسم. في لاين تاني بقى خالص اسمه, هستعمل له brown, اسمه line L. There is a totally different line which is called line L. Line L ده passes through the point 3 and 1. Okay? And parallel to the green. Line L passes through. Line L passes through 3 and 1 and parallel to the green. I am required to find the equation of line L, the brown. Now, as we said, to write the equation of a line, I need a gradient and I need a point. I need a gradient and I need a point. The point is given already. أهي. لأنه to write an equation of a line, I need a point that belongs to the line itself. طيب, what about the gradient? Since these two highlighted lines are parallel, then they have the same gradient. I already know the gradient of the green from the equation, which is negative 2. So I will use it in the second line, اللي هو line L. يعني the green line has a gradient of negative 2. How did I get it? From the equation. Why am I allowed to use the same gradient? Because the examiner said that the lines are parallel. Now, aho, I have the gradient. I have the point. Since I am not given the C, I will use this y minus y1 equals m, open bracket, x minus x1. x minus x1. تمام؟ طيب دلوقتي هنا بقى قال لي write an equation of L وسكت. ما قاليش اكتبيها في انهي فورم. اعمل ايه بقى؟ It's totally up to you. يعني انا if I substitute and leave it at this stage, the examiner must consider it as a correct answer. يعني لو انا عملت كده وسبتها كده, I will take the mark. If you decide to expand negative 2x plus 6 and simplify, then it is totally up to you. نودي دي هناك plus هتبقى plus 7. and actually it makes sense. بصوا لأن هو هنا ال C طلعت لي ب 7 it makes sense إنه this is 7. So if you actually write it and leave it at this stage مفيش أي مشكلة. If you continue and write it بالشكل ده مفيش برضو أي مشكلة خالص. Okay? This is مثلا one more example related to parallel and perpendicular lines. Another example related to parallel and perpendicular lines. Now the last question that I'm going to do is this question over here. لأنه ده سؤال محترم كده يعني سؤال ثقيل وأنا حابة إن إحنا نعمله مع بعض. And as you can see, this is a question that is graded out of 5 marks. I'm just going to erase this to have time. And this is the last question that we are going to do today. تمام؟ Okay. هنا لأنه أحيانا بقى بنحتاج إن إحنا نرسم في أسئلة كتيرة. In a lot of questions, sketching is important. So you should try and sketch if you think that the question is annoying. This is too thick. I need to make it smaller. Okay, thinner, I mean. Okay, technical problem برضو كالعادة أحيانا. أيوة بس كده. Okay, here it says ABC is an isosceles triangle. So the best thing to do is, of course, the best thing to do is draw the triangle. أهو. طبعا we all know that an isosceles triangle is a triangle in which two sides are equal to one another. Now here it says AB is equal to AC. It is very important to know how to label the triangle. Now since the common point is A, so let's label the vertex as A. So this is point A. And then you can just shuffle point B and point C. يعني عايزين تحطوهم كده عايزين تقلبوهم مش فارق. Okay. Such that point A has coordinates 4 and 37. ماشي. الexaminer مديني point A which is 4 and 47. B and C lie on the line with this equation over here. Lie with this equation over here. Type. I am given one order pair as you can see. Now, why am I given this equation? 10. I am given this equation. Actually, I'm going to highlight this highlighted equation is the equation of this highlighted line. فالline ده اللي هو highlighted has this equation over here. فأنا I can actually proceed with step number 1 immediately. Why am I given this equation? I am given this equation not to find the coordinates of points B and C because I don't have any x values given, but to find the gradient of the highlighted yellow. So that's the equation. 3y equals 2x plus 12. Three y equals to 2x plus 12. Now, if I divide the whole equation by 3, because as we said, that to find the gradient from an equation, the y must be subject. So y equals 2 over 3x plus 4. Okay? Please, please, please do not change the gradient into decimals because of this part over here. This is classified page 167. صحيح. Classified page 167. Classified part 1. We're still in the same classified. So the gradient of this line over here is 2 over 3. تمام. So at least مثلا أنا إيه ضمنت درجة. Find the equation of the line of symmetry of the triangle ABC. Now, where is the line of symmetry? Or what is the line of symmetry? The line of symmetry is a line that cuts the triangle into half. And if we are dealing, I'm going to use green. If we are dealing with an isosceles triangle, what is so special about the line of symmetry of an isosceles triangle is that it is perpendicular to the highlighted yellow. The line of symmetry is perpendicular to the highlighted yellow, and it divides the base into 2 equal parts. يعني بيعدي على midpoint. بيعدي على midpoint and it's perpendicular. find the equation of the line of symmetry. I am required to find the equation of this green. I am required to find the equation. لا أكيد مش هنكتب بالهايلايتر. I am required to find the equation of the green, which is the line of symmetry. Now again, to find the equation of a line, I need a gradient and I need a point that is on the line. عايزة point موجودة على الline. I have the point already, which is point A. And of course, as you can see, point A is 4 and 37. It has no C. So definitely in this question, I will use y minus y1. طيب, what about the gradient? Since the highlighted green and the highlighted yellow are perpendicular to one another, then I can apply شقلب وقلب, or I can apply negative reciprocals of one another, or in other words, if the gradient of the yellow is 2 over 3, then the gradient of the green will be negative 3 over 2. شقلب وقلب, negative 3 over 2. And this is a fact that we know about perpendicular lines. يبقى أنا جبت الجريدينت بتاع اليلو ومنه استنتجت الإيكويشن بتاع الجرين. So I calculated the equation, or I found the gradient of the base BC from the equation, which was 2 over 3. And then from this gradient, I was able to conclude the equation of the green. And now, بقى, moving on to the last part of the question, which is substitution in y minus y1 equals m open bracket x minus x1. And again, these are the 3 letters that you replace by numbers, y1, m, and x1. So y minus 37 equals, now again, negative gradient. How do I deal with negative gradient? Please put the negative with the numerator, x minus 4. And then, since it says write the equation in this form, as you can see, the x and the y are collected on one side, the constant value on the right-hand side, all the numbers must be integers, means that the question doesn't require any fractions. Apply السمكة or the fish method. The denominator to be multiplied with the left, numerator to be multiplied with the right. ديل السمكة شمال وراسها يمين. ولو الجريدينت negative, خلي النيجاتيف فوق وريح نفسيكم. If the gradient is negative, keep it with the numerator وشكرا على كده. Now multiply 2 times y, which is 2y, 2 times 37, negative 74, and then negative 3 times x is negative 3x, negative 3 times negative 4 is positive 12. Collect the x's on one side, collect the letters on one side, 2y minus 3x, and then move the 74 by addition, 12 plus 74 is 86. And here goes your final answer. So just again, let me just make sure that the numbers are all correct. Okay, y minus 37 equals x minus 4. 2 times 37 is 74. تمام. Okay. على فكرة أنا ممكن أخد ممكن I can this is an answer. Another answer is you can do the opposite. You can move the 2y to this side of the equation, so it changes into negative 3x minus 2y, and then move the 12 هناك. لا ثانية أنا عملت حاجة هنا مش مظبوطة. ال 3x لما تروح هتبقى plus 3x. Sorry. Plus 3x. And no, Anna, I moved this to this side. I moved the 3x by positive 3x. Or if you actually decide to do it the other way around, if you want to move the 2y, so it changes into negative 3x minus 2y, and then move the 12, فهتبقى negative 86. Now, how would you know? Are these two answers the same? Yes, they are exactly the same because all the signs are reversed. All the signs are reversed. Well, I hope that this video was useful to you. And of course, there will be more practice related to y equals mx plus c, y minus y1 in school, or Even if you watch any of the past paper videos, you'll find a lot of questions related to that. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the coming video. Thank you. Bye.